Wow, that's like not a very good picture there. Yeah, we're live. A little bit of a delay there. I had fixed my camera. It was not working as it should. Welcome, you guys. Good to see everybody. Hopefully, I'm recovering from the live feed that Lisa and I did our happy hour and horsepower. Unfortunately, we had a really bad connection on that video. We had a lot of fun, which was great, and it was nice to talk to a couple people that were there, but the internet connection was just not great. So we kind of had a limited amount of discussion because it's not, nobody ever wants to watch a video where the internet connection's bad and it keeps buffering. And we fade in and out and all that stuff. It's just, it's not a good deal. So welcome everybody. I'm a little bit late here. It's 7:19. We had a bunch of stuff we had to do earlier today, but the cool news for today, we're going to talk about a couple things. One, we're going to talk about how important it is to make lists, and I have a list here for the Omni GLH. But before we get to that, we have I have this. So I'm obviously going to have to do a video or something. Let me there we go, so we can kind of see it. Yeah, 100,000 subscribers, even though it's closer to 200 now, but that's okay. I finally got it ordered and figured out what the procedure was and how to do all that. So again, this is very cool, very exciting. I got to show my family and stuff, and we'll do something on that. This is kind of fun. Yeah, 100,000 subscribers. So most of all, thank you guys for helping make this happen, because obviously this would not have happened without you guys. So we need to talk about doing some kind of giveaway that I didn't do back when we had 100,000 subscribers. So give me some ideas on what to do, what we need to give away. I've got stuff here sitting in my office. I've got camshafts and carburetors and all kinds of weird stuff that I could certainly give away, and to say thanks basically to you guys. And then my goal before the end of the year is to get green screen actually working. And then also I'm going to be doing some probably live, and maybe all of them won't be live, but we'll definitely be doing some interviews with some different industry people, and that will be good because we'll get to hear more other kinds of opinions. Because what I want to do is, I'm going to ask the hard-hitting questions because I have a technical background. I can speak to people like Billy and translate the stuff that they're going to say, and Brian Tooley, and we know what questions to ask of them. We know what what people want to know and what they want to hear, and so we'll get to talk to those guys. And honestly, it's less about like trying to get in depth in the industry and trying to find secrets than it is just about talking with those guys. Because every time we get together and start talking about stuff, it goes off on these tangents that everybody would be interested in hearing this conversation, because it's always lots and lots of cool stuff. So every time I get together with those guys, it's good. And so we just need to do it officially. And so I'm working out some applications that will allow me to do that. I don't have that right now, but I want to get people on, and we'll talk to Matt probably over at Sloppy, and like I said, Brian and Billy and guys from Holly, and just there's lots of guys out there that I would want to talk to. I'm sure that you guys, and then we can get a list together, and you guys can tell me who you'd like to see, and what kind of questions we'd like to do. We could get some really good stuff going. Give the Big Bang motor away. The only Big Bang motor I still have is the 6-liter Gen 6 motor, or Gen 4 motor on the 6-liter, but it's got a leak though. It's got a leak coming up through at least one of the I think what's happening is, I think that the where the threaded portions are for the head bolts or head studs, in this case, that we're using head studs, I think where those are, that there's cracks in them. It's allowing water to come up through the threads in the head studs. The other possibility, and I've been thinking about this, is that we primarily run, like when we ran the Big Bang motor, we ran TrickFlow 225 heads on it. And it could be that the TrickFlow heads are the thing that are leaking. So I'm going to have those tested and make sure that where they machine the little where they spot face it basically for the head bolt or for the head stud, for the receiver, for the washer and stuff, that sometimes you can get into water there. So we'll see, because we had to tighten up when we're using the CA625 head studs. You got to tighten those like to 100 foot-pounds or something. So I just want to make sure we're not crushing the aluminum stuff. And I've had lots of good luck with the trick flow stuff always, and I don't remember running into that problem in the past. But it's something that I definitely like to take a look at, because every time we run it, we end up getting water in the motor. And it's not hurt the motor at all. It still runs fine. It's just that you get water in the oil and stuff, and you don't want to fill that up with oil. You rust on stuff. So I want to cure that problem, so that I wouldn't give away a motor that I knew had some issues. So Tim, you think cams and carburetors are boring? A sign piece from a blown up engine. I did save the spun bearings from the 3800, and I think I may have one of the bent connecting rods from one of the motors, I think, that's stashed away somewhere. I think we normally keep that stuff for a little while, because I think, oh, this is like really cool to show people stuff. Hey, look, we've bent the connecting rod. We've bent a powdered metal connecting rod, and that's not supposed to happen. And then when I'm going through stuff thinking, I have way too much stuff here, I really have to get rid of all this stuff. I have to just throw it away, because I'm never going to reuse that, other than maybe make a plaque or something that I could put up on the wall. But so let me know, give me some ideas on some stuff that you guys would like to see. Obviously, even though I have 100,000, I can't give away a car or something like that, because I don't have Cletus kind of budget for stuff like that. But it's getting better and better, which is good. The other thing I want to talk about, and the reason that I put an arbitrary photo up, because I had actually done a photo of the 100,000 deal. Let's see, got to get the lighting just right on it. I put up a photo of that, but it doesn't photograph very well, and it also doesn't take up the screen very well. So it wasn't a good thumbnail. So I have that Vortec motor up there, which, it's boost, so everyone loves boost. But the important part of all of that is the fact that when we're doing stuff, when we're starting a new project, whether it's even a simple engine build, when I do engine builds, and even when I don't do a complete engine, which I've done, more than my share of those, when I do those, I'll make a list of everything that's going to go into the engine, so that I know what the build is going to entail, but also so that I know what's there and what's missing. And that way I know what things I have to order and what things I have to get. Because when I go down to Westech, which is typically where I put everything together, and I get down there and I'm doing it, the last thing you want to happen is, okay, I'm going to put the motor together now. And I have the block and it's machined, and I go through the list of all the things that I had to do for the machining on it. I have the bearings and the crankshaft and the thrust bearing, and put all that together. And then I don't have, if you don't have something that you need early on, it stops you from getting anything done. If I don't have the right, if I don't have the cam bearings in there, or I don't have the little barbell that goes in, any of these things, and it just takes something really small that's not on your list that you didn't get, that stops you from completing the motor. So especially if it's something that you put in early, like when you're doing the short block or something, then you can't put that together, and you can't put the heads on, you can't put the cam in, and you can't do anything, and it just stops your build from actually happening. It's the same thing with anything else. Like I have a big list here. You can't really see that because of the lighting and because it's a white piece of paper, but I have a list here of things that I need to do to the Omni GLH. So I do a walk around on it and make a list of all the things that I want to change, things that obviously, I want a twin turbocharged, 17-liter V12 or something like that in there. It's got to be a realistic list. I'd like it to do light speed and all that, but it's simple things. Like one of the things that I did recently was, for some reason, it had a bad tire. When I got the car back here on the trailer, the tire was flat. And I'm like, well, why? I wonder why what's going on there. And I took the tire off, and it had a big old chunk missing out of the tire. And I'm like, how the heck did that happen? So luckily for me, all I needed to do was go down and get a used tire and put a used tire on it, just so that it would take air and stuff, because I'm gonna fix the or put on the original wheels for that Omni. But before I do that, and this is the thing that happens with your list, is okay, I'm going to put the stock wheels back on. Okay, before I put the stock wheels on, I've got to put tires on it. Okay, when you do that, you got to balance it. And I'm going to put new valve stems in them because the valve stems are maybe from the 80s. So you want to do that. But also now when I put the wheels, so each little thing that you do becomes its own little project. So, okay, put the stock wheels and tires on. So I got to get tires. That's one thing. We got to change the valve stems. But the wheels themselves are a whole project unto themselves, because before I can put those stock wheels on, I could just put them on the way that they are, clean them off and put them on. But I think, and you guys can let me know, I think that they polish those wheels and then clear them. That's what it looks like. So it looks like the clear is fading. And so now I have to have that stripped, have them repolished, and have them re-cleared. Again, it's a whole new project. Before then, I can put the wheels and tires on. I could just have them polished, but then the polishing, because of, it's polished aluminum, doesn't last as long if you don't put a coating over it. And it lasts a long time if you do it right. And then you have to do it with the right stuff. So the wheels become a whole thing. And then this is how projects work. This is the thing, is that I take the wheels off. I think that those wheels were actually from a Subaru. They have behind them, they have a spacer. So we take the wheel off, take the spacer off, and then you look behind there and you're like, okay, I got to put a new wheel on here. And then you look at it, you're like, well, those rotors are like totally rusted. They've been sitting there for, I don't know, 4 or 5 years. So the rotors are rusted. So yeah, and I know that if we go out and drive the car and stand on the brakes, a lot of that surface rust will come off. But they just need to be, the rotor needs to be turned. Probably it's probably a good idea. I got to check the pads, obviously, make sure that the pads are in good shape. If you're going to change the pads, not a bad idea to change the rotor. So I could either put new rotors on, or I could turn those rotors, and then you got to check the thickness of the rotor to make sure that you're not below the minimum. And then if they are getting below, you want the brakes to work, because the brakes, in my opinion, are probably the most important thing. And then boost. Brakes, yes, brakes become. Jerry, what's going on? Thank you very much. But that's how all of this stuff snowballs. And then you look at the brakes and go, okay, I can fix the rotor. I can put a new rotor on. Those are cheap. Or turn the rotor is even cheaper. Put new pads in. That's all great. And then you look at the shape of the caliper and go, you know what? I'm here. I'm taking the caliper apart. I may as well bead blast a caliper or something, at least so it looks good. The things, from the 80s, it might be time to rebuild the caliper. Maybe it needs new seals in it. Maybe it needs new pistons. It at least deserves a look. And then, make the outside look nice. Like I said, bead blast it or something. And then pretty soon you're disassembling everything. And then whatever the caliper and the whatever the caliper is attached to, you're like, you know what, it would be nice if I painted that, if I painted it all black and got rid of all the spider webs that are on it. And that's the thing, you start with, okay, I need a new radiator cap. And then pretty soon it becomes a whole restoration of the car. And it just started out with, I needed a new radiator cap. And that's how these projects are. But so I go through and I'll make a list of all of the things. I have, I don't know, 15 or 18 different things right now under the category paint, because I want to repaint that car. I want it to be the cool blue that it was originally, and I want it to look nice, and I want it to be new. And I've never done that with one of the projects that I've had. The last car I can remember painting was a 924, and I had a friend of mine, Randy, who Paint by Hopper painted it and painted it yellow. And I had a yellow Civic too, and because they stand out, we could have painted it Porsche India red, which was the hot thing back then, but I wanted it to be different. The car was originally yellow, I think, so we repainted it yellow, so I didn't have to do the door jambs and all that stuff. But again, that's the thing with paint, it's the same way as it is with mechanical stuff. With paint, you're like, okay, I want to repaint that. Okay, well, if you're going to paint it, you got to sand it all the way down. So now should I strip it all the way to metal? And then to do that, should I do that? And is there any rust? Are there any panels that have to be repaired? Luckily, I don't think that there are in this car, which is kind of nice. But there are dents, so we have to fix the dents. Should I strip all the paint off of it, or use that as, then just reprime it and then repaint it? And I'm going to talk to Dulcich about that and see what he thinks. But there is going to be some repair on here. I'm going to fix some of these dents. And then when you do that, if you sand everything down, because it had, the clear coat is coming off in a lot of spots. So I got to get rid of all of that at least, obviously. And then the thing is, do you do the door jambs? Okay, you're gonna paint it a factory color. The other things are the factory color. Luckily, the door jambs and to some extent under the hood and stuff, that stuff doesn't fade nearly as bad as the stuff that's exposed to the sun. But it still does. And if you're going to repaint it, there's no way that that new paint, whatever it is now, is going to match the paint that's exactly the same as it was, even though it's the right code number and all that. It's not going to match what was done from the batch back in 1985. So then you got to redo the jams. So then you got to, and the other thing is when you're deciding to paint, again, I kind of want to talk to Dulcich about this, is it better to take the fenders off, take the hood off, take the doors off, and paint those as individual things? I know we have to take off all of the stuff, all of the, side markers and door handles and glass and all that stuff. And then some of those things, some of that door is black. Some of the trim around it is black. So that's not going to be body color. That will be black. So we'll have to paint that stuff black. So there's a whole list of things. And then when you're going to do that, if you're going to do the doors, you're going to do the jams, you got to replace the weather stripping, because you may as well, you're not going to put the new or old weather stripping on. You're definitely going to put new weather stripping in, and you kind of should, because it's an 85. Again, it turns into like everything. You got to change everything. And then pretty soon the good deal on the Dodge Omni that I get is a full restoration. And then all of a sudden it becomes like, $1 million Dodge Omni, which is, not at all what I want. So the other option is just not do any of that and just drive it the way that it is, and, put the power in it and make all that work. But I kind of want the thing to be nice. When it's driving around, I want it to be, I want it to look good, and I don't mind doing that kind of work. But like I said, if you're going to do that, make a list of the stuff, because the other thing that the list helps you do, it helps you decide like the extent of the project. You look at the list and go, you buy that car, you're like, man, I can get that thing running in no time. Yeah, but I want to do this, and I should probably do something on the suspension. I just kind of need a bigger rear sway bar and probably brakes, and then tires and suspension and brakes and tranny work. And, pretty soon you look at your list and you're like, oh, that's like, I'm building a whole car now. And then you think, okay, can you put, a value or a price on that kind of stuff? And you go, oh yeah, now my $500 car, or my $2,000 car, whatever it is, now it's not that car anymore. Now it's a much more expensive car. So then you have to decide what most people would do is, okay, is it cheaper then for me to buy a car where most of that stuff is already done? Do I save money doing that, even though I spend a little bit more for that car than I do for the budget car, the do-it-yourself car? If I spend a little bit more now, do I save that later on? So all of those things are things for you to consider when starting any kind of project. Like I said, whether it's an engine or whether it's a car, obviously a lot more involved, because there are more things that you have to fix on the vehicle. Like now that I've taken the engine out, you look in the engine bay and you're like, yeah, that needs some work. It needs to be, at the very least, it needs to be like tidied up and look nicer. And then when you're doing that, okay, I'm going to take this off and this off and this off. And you're like, I may as well take all this stuff off and just repaint all of that so that it looks nice. And again, then that whole thing is like a sub project of the major project. And the nice thing about that though is, and that's the way that I like to approach it, is like, okay, today I'm going to try to do brakes or just tires or just wheels or whatever it is. And it's one thing at a time. So I'll do this and I can check that off my list. And then you go on to the next thing. And then also when you make the list and you start talking about those things or start thinking about those things, you also start prioritizing them, not just in lieu or in order of the way that you want to do them, but in the way that they have to be done. There are some things that have to be done before others. You don't want the thing up on jack stands its whole life. So again, tires and wheels, it has to have something, at least slave stuff, so you can roll it around. You know, you've got to put the engine together, but you don't want to put the engine in and then try to repaint the engine compartment. That's just not going to happen. So there are certainly things that have to come in order. And then when you prioritize them and you go, okay, look, I'm going to do this and this and this and this because this has to happen before this, and you do all of that stuff and go, okay, while it's down, while it's apart, while I have the interior out because I'm repainting it, I can do these different things. And so it just helps you organize your whole build on what's going to happen. And you know, it's a very good idea. And that's the way that I approach this stuff. And so I have a list of things that I already want to get done. And as luck would have it, I've already have one thing that I've checked off my list. I've already fixed the tire on the Omni. So I have officially started the project. Well, and I started it a while ago because the first thing on the list was obviously get the Omni. And then the next thing was take engine and trans out of the Omni. And I've done that. So that's a good start. And I've even taken the engine apart to look at the broken stuff. And it turns out that it's the cylinder head. So we're ahead of the game a little bit. So let's we'll get to you guys and see what kind of questions you got. Yeah, Richard needs two lists. One list for needs doing, and the second list for would be nice to have done. Priorities first. Yeah. Primer is finer. Let's see. Switching my 383 SS side bed decals to Big Bad SS. No one copy you. No, yeah, you can have that 70s motorcycle helmet metal flake. How can you say no? I know, that is awesome, right? Chicken wire windshields. Oh, that must be a dirt track guy. Uncle Tony's garage saves money by having 2 properties covered in derelict cars and people that follow him around cleaning his mess. That would be nice if I had like people that could come here. I need little the little project gnomes that go finish all the stuff while I go to sleep. That would be great. Admiral, off topic, but I need your valued opinion. Twin 7875s or twin 6762s on a 98 Cobra motor with a 90. So you want 2,000 horsepower and a Kenny Bell. I don't know if the 267s are going to support 1,000. If the 67 is going to support 1,000 horsepower. I don't know if that size turbo will do that. The 7875s definitely will. So if that's the number you want, I think you're gonna have to go with the bigger turbos. Honestly, I would go with the smaller turbos on that if I was just doing the, well, but you're gonna have oh, so if you already have a supercharger, I definitely would go with the bigger turbos because you already have all of the response that you're going to need, because a 3.2 liter Kenny Bell is going to be is going to make it plenty responsive. Yeah, Tim, the 67s I would be kind of iffy. What are my thoughts on the truck Norris cam? It's going to work really well. It's going to, I think the guys from Brian Tooley are going to sell a ton of those. Brian Tooley's found out some really cool stuff on cam timing, and he's going to probably be talking about that sometime at a later date. But the truck Norris cam has some of the information that they found, and it works very well. They're able to get a bunch of low speed power and still make good power. You can see the duration numbers on it, so the thing's still going to make pretty good power. Yep, compounding, that's good. Thank you, Carl. I do have days when I like a brand new 1986 Buick Regal. Yes, I did see it today. I was telling we were driving, and there were some cool like hot rods driving around. I don't know if there was a show or something today, but we saw a Grand National, which I don't see a lot of those driving around. So I pointed it out to my sons and had to explain to them why that particular car was really cool. Florida's in the house. If you have a good compressor, get a sandblaster. I have a compressor. It's a Craftsman. If you rhino line the entire GLH, you'll probably get better fuel economy. Isn't that just going to add a bunch of weight? But it is good sound deadening. How to increase the power of a Dodge Viper Ram 155 horsepower engine? How is a Viper engine 155 horsepower? Yeah, the truck Norris cam is going to be good, and as we know, every cam is a boost cam, so I'm pretty sure that that thing can make some huge power. My sons are not working on cars, but my oldest son is working on getting his first car. So you want to see the Omni cruising around with an adjustable intake manifold? That would kind of be cool. I really should make my own intake for the Dodge because it kind of deserves that. I don't currently have the 3.2, but compounding is awesome, and they make the 3.2 that fits the same flange as an M112. Yeah, they have the blower upgrade for that. A 3.2 would make a ton of power. I mean, you could make 1,000 horsepower with that blower. Yeah, at the time, the Grand National was the fastest car. It was, I mean, it wasn't fast like the Corvette was fast, not in top speed, but it would definitely beat it in a drag race. I don't have a home shop, so that a tour of that would would be very, very short. Oh, he wants to increase the Viper V10 by 155 horsepower. If it's a stock motor, then ported heads and a cam. And a lot of guys, depending on what year the Viper engine was, a lot of guys were extrude honing the intake manifolds, porting it. But obviously, boost would easily do that. 255 liter per hour, enough flow for a 500 horsepower carb small block Chevy. Yes, it is, because if the flow rate's going to go up dramatically when you at 6 or 7 psi as opposed to 40 or 50 or 60 psi. We can fix up the Nova. No, he's looking at a Civic Si. Yeah, sandblasting an entire car is probably not something I would do at home. The Todd, the drive ratio that you want on a GMC blower, if it's you need to tell me what the size is, but we could give you a pretty good idea based on how much power that you want. 605, thank you. Dave, the later the information given to me by the 4200 guys is that the later, like an 06 and up, has a better cylinder head. The 05 is supposed to have a better crankshaft. So they like to mix and match those. Honestly, I think we haven't seen enough testing to decide that matters or what level that matters at. Calvin's made good power with both the early and the later ones. No, I don't want to sandblast the whole car. Back in the day when I was running World Challenge, we walnut shell blasted the race car, and it was a Fox Mustang, and we had stuff. I mean, we used air, we used water, we used steam cleaning. We did everything that we could to get all that stuff out, and it never came out. The thing that got finally, I was driving and I'd be like driving in a dust storm. It was ridiculous all the time. And it didn't come out for after about 6 or 7 races, it kind of subsided. Yeah, Admiral, if you compound it, if you use that 3.2 liter and use the 7875s, it'll be very, very responsive. Where's your bat cave? Yeah, with the secret door that makes the bush come down. I always love the bat cave stuff. 55% overdrive on a 1471. That's going to be a lot. Dumping sand out of the frame rails at the drags will not make you popular. Yeah, that's called sandbagging, right? Oh, a 471 on a 383 for 500 horsepower. The 471 you're going to spin up fairly good. It's going to be past 1-to-1. Dave, and like I said, you probably don't have to do that. If you got an 06, it's going to work fine, especially if you're going to run boost on it. Yes, if you want to add 155 horsepower to make 800 horsepower, boost is a very easy way to do it. It's not going to take very much starting with that kind of power. You know, it's like people were saying there, it's going to be less than 5 pounds. At 7 pounds, you're going to be closer to 900 than 800 probably. But cam, ported heads, ported intake, long tube headers. Yeah, Dan, that's too. A 150 shot would be the easy way to do that. And you could do it because of the way that the cool you know, dual throttle body Viper opening. You could do 275 shots. So we'll go back and see some of these others. Arc, you're selling relabeled VIX 44. That's good stuff, but the Robitussin's better. Where does one go to get a brand new Dodge Omni GLH? Yeah, those are kind of hard to find. Clear power coating, yep, is a big intercooler on your list. This car, Todd, this car, the Dodge Omni actually had a really big front mount on it, but right now that's not on my list. My list is actually to run it as a stock T2, which is the 175 horse version. Do land speed racing cars have something special to keep them from overheating while power for so long? No, actually, you have a lot of airflow at very high speeds. In fact, what we did on the Honda is reduce the amount of airflow going into it because we wanted to improve the aerodynamics, and the thing never got hot. So I can skip back down now, see what's going on. Vortex centrifugal blower, yeah, 1,000 horsepower blower like a YSI or something would be good. Daniel, no, I haven't. I'm very sorry to hear. Send me an email and we'll get you hooked up with whatever you want, man. I just put my email address down there. Have you done an exhaust manifold testing, stock versus shorty versus long tubes? Yes, that video is already up. I've tested that a lot. Shorty headers make sometimes a tiny bit more than stock, usually not, usually the same, but sometimes a little bit more. Long tubes make a lot more than stock or shorty headers, and mid-length headers make between shorties and long tubes as kind of what you would expect. And when you test them on a motor that a lot of times doesn't have a camshaft in it, the gains that you get from the long tube headers are less than they would be on another combination. But the nice thing about long tube headers is they almost always gain lots of power down low over stock or shorty headers. And for some reason, a lot of guys think that, oh, stock exhaust manifolds and shorty headers, that's going to give me a lot of low speed torque. That's not how it works. What do you expect to get when you get the cams for the 4200? I just don't know. We don't know until we test them to see how much of a gain. But given how mild the stock cams are, I would expect we would get some power. We're going to definitely go up in boost because now I have the motors back together. So we have the head has been fixed, so it has a valve job and all that stuff. We have springs in it. We have ring gap in it. We have head studs on it. So it should go. We should be able to run lots of boost. Are you able to make turbo throttle response on power with naturally aspirated? It's on power with naturally aspirated already because when there's no boost, it is naturally aspirated. Jackson Racing had roots blowers. Yeah, they had the little Eatons, the little M45s and the M62s. I did a lot of testing with Oscar back in the day. Are twin GT45s capable of 1,000 horsepower? Yes. And the plugs that we run are on the big bang stuff because we're running so much boost. We would run a heat range of 9 or a 10. We ran Denso Iridiums and a lot of stuff on those motors. Michael, thank you. Dave, thank you very much. Dave, did you have a question? Can you have too big of an intercooler? Intercooler size is usually a fitment thing and not sizing. You're never going to get you're never going to get your charge temperature too cold, so you don't have to worry about that. Somebody had asked me about this question before, and they wanted me to do a video on what it takes to convert a standard carburetor to a blow-through carburetor. I have used conventional stock, out of the box carburetors that are not blow-through carburetors in blow-through applications. And all we did, and it's easy because we're running it on the dyno, all we did was we went from 72 jets to 100 jets. And we even ran it on E85 as a blow-through. And we ran a 4412, the Ultra version of that 2-barrel carburetor on the inline 6-cylinder, and it worked. And it works if you're throwing a ton of fuel at it. That's not a carburetor that you'd want to drive around like that, but it's probably possible. Camshaft nunchucks, those would be really heavy. Thanks, Juan. Out of all the 351 Windsor boost stuff you've done, have you ever tried it on truck manifolds? No, but they'll work just fine. We've tried it. I've done it on 302s. To get 550 horsepower on a stock block Ford 331, 10 pounds from a GT45, that would do it. If you look at, I have 302 videos up that we easily get that kind of power. I think he was saying, I know what he's saying about the throttle response, and he wants the turbo to come on immediately, but it's not going to do exactly, it's not going to feel exactly what an NA one does. But if you take a look at, if you've ever driven a modern turbo car, a factory one, they do a really good job of making the thing feel like a bigger motor. Dave, so you're in Georgia? John, what did you do a full episode on? Turbo cars really wake up when there's single digit temperatures outside. Yeah, they definitely do like the cold stuff. So Tim, you want to see somebody use Rochester mechanical injection with a turbo? The manifold is going to work really well. The fuel delivery is not going to work very well. We had trouble with the 327 Corvette that we did when we did the L84, the 375 horse 327 rated, and ran the fuel injection on it. And we had a really good fuel injection guy, mechanical fuel injection guy that restores these things. And the problem is that the needle and seat that they use on those is really not enough to keep up with the power potential of even, it was questionable even with that stock motor. So you'd have to do a lot of work or put two of them like there is on a carburetor to be able to keep up with the power needs. And on a turbo thing, I don't know how you would make that work. Weber DCOE with a turbo. We done a lot of that stuff back in the day. Side drafts on 240Zs. Corky Bell used to do a bunch of that stuff. That was pretty common. How do I upgrade an 8.3 to a 10-liter Dodge? You have to do a swap or you have to upgrade the internals. I'm team naturally aspirated. That's okay. You do the thing that you like. They just make less power than boosted motors do. Yeah, Edward, that combination will easily do the kind of power that you're talking about. John, 0.05 in duration equals 500 RPM. I don't know what that kind of math that is. Yeah, Tim, if you look at all the modern stuff that people are doing, the small turbos and stuff that we're using on VWs, they had peak torque was at 1800 RPM. And so they want to have like their goal for OEM stuff is to have like 90% of the available torque from 1800 RPM to 6000 RPM because they have different goals. They're not looking for maximum power or whatever, or even maximum torque. They're looking for the thing to act like, for the small motor to act like a big motor. And that's the way that they do that. And they also do it with, they typically do it with a decreasing boost curve. So when you nail the throttle, they have like lots of boost initially. And then the boost curve drops off as you go out in RPM, because they only need to make the power whatever their design to power goal is. So if they're only trying to get 200 horsepower out of a turbocharged 2-liter engine, that's fairly easy to do. And they don't even have to do it at very much boost, but having a lot of boost early gives them big torque numbers and lots of response and stuff. Yeah, the Rochester fuel injection, the manifold themselves work very good. Although I have to say that the other limiting factor on the Rochester fuel injection is actually the throttle body size. The throttle opening is too small to support the power level that the rest of the manifold could do. I remember seeing lots of stuff back in the day where guys had actually put 2 of those throttle bodies on the Rochester fuel injection, and they'd make a lot more power. So it needs more airflow, but it definitely needs more fuel flow. Daniel, thank you, Richard. Definitely send you an email and we'll get together and see what kind of manuals you got and we'll get a package together. Definitely stay safe. We will. I have out of the box picture junior heads with the Howard's Camp 251, 257. That's a lot. 600 lift, 7,000 RPM red line. The nitrous motor is considered NA, and then you add the nitrous, right? Kinsler injection on a turbo setup. They did that. And Dan, I'm sure you know that they did that stuff in Can-Am when they saw all of the fancy stuff that Porsche was doing with the turbo stuff. I think some of the guys were actually doing, they were doing turbo big block stuff, I think, before Porsche jumped in. And I don't know that I don't know how successful they were, but that's what they started out with. They started out boxing up the long stack injection. BP Racing MS-109 is oxygenated fuel, which is like constantly running nitrous. Maybe not quite that. You want to get more turbo whistle at idle? What's the most boost you've ever seen? Those would be on some of the compound diesel stuff where they're running, more than 100 psi. Yeah, Dan, that's funny. That's what I was going to suggest. If you damage the turbo, it'll make all kinds of bad noises. RP26 had ITBs. See, I don't call them individual throttle bodies. I guess they do have a throttle body per hole, so that's the kind of thing. But the manifold is no longer an IR manifold when it has a common plenum on it. Yeah, some of the race stuff in gas engines, they're running more. I mean, Mahovitz runs more than 50 pounds of boost on his 4.6 liter stuff when he was drag racing it. So those boost levels are fairly high, but they're not high like the compound stuff that can be 150 pounds on some of the diesel stuff. Yeah, it's probably a good idea to keep your turbine wheel. Although I did have an interesting thing happen, and it definitely shows the effect of turbine wheel design. I ran a Honda B series on the engine dyno over at the carb shop. I wasn't running at Westech, and we ran it on the carb shop, and we ran I think it was a 66 millimeter turbo on. This was on a B16, which was pretty good size. But the thing started to get like softer and softer. Like it made good power at the very top, but it seemed like the thing was like much more laggy than it was when we first started. A 66 is fairly good size on a B16 anyway, but we were getting peak boost at 55 or 5800 or something, and then it was kind of carrying over. And then it started to not make peak boost and kind of until peak engine speed. And we're like, what the heck is going on? And so I finally took the turbo off, and a bunch of the turbine wheel was missing. Well, what had happened was and this is why I don't use exhaust gaskets anymore. We used a T4 exhaust manifold and a T4 turbo, and used a T4 gasket, the steel shim gaskets. Well, the gasket was a little smaller than the inside diameter of the opening of the T4 manifold. And so what it was doing is all of that hot gas was shearing pieces of the manifold off and sending that into the turbine. And so it was just eating away portions of the turbine. And then the portions of the turbine were going away. And that's what was making our thing less restrictive, because we had basically clipped our wheel down and it still worked. I was amazing that the turbo still worked after we saw it. I'm like, ooh, yeah, that's not good. And then I looked down and I'm like, oh yeah, that's why that's happening, because like I said, it was just, and it wasn't very much. It was like, I don't know, like a 16th of an inch or something like that. And it just had taken all that off and flame cut it and sent it into the turbo. And then it didn't work very well. An LG8. See, that's an engine code that I wasn't familiar with. I think all of those are eye candy, right? Gordon Murray T50 is a 3.8 to 4.0 liter V12 car hitting 600 horsepower manual gearbox, classic manual. Have you ever seen a lifter come apart? Yeah, I have. I've seen the retaining clips come out of them, and we've seen lifters be destroyed. Yeah, the little retaining clip will definitely come out. We've seen those broken. A lot of times, sometimes when they're putting them together, they'll break those clips when they're assembling them initially before they package them. So you want to put a new Coyote Mustang and then put a 65 289 in it? It'd be a big step down in power, that's for sure. A 305 powered C3 Corvette. In California, they have them, yeah. Softening combustion chambers on aluminum heads is definitely a good idea for drag race cars. I would think you'd want an old school Boss Canaval 302. Now that would be a good motor. But a stock Boss 302 still doesn't make anywhere near what a new Boss Coyote motor makes, or even a 18 or 19 and up version. Yeah, if you have the bottom of the lifter go off, that's not good. We've seen the rollers, like on hydraulic roller stuff. We've seen those break, the little tabs holding the rollers. We've seen those snap sometimes. A Boss 302 in a Boss 302 is an awesome combination. I love the way that the body looks. I think it's a great engine, and you could do it an awful lot, obviously, even with the stock heads. Thunderbolt's a good one. Terrence, two of those 257s on a 5.7 Hemi would make good power. Yeah, the truck engines is good. The truck engine is going to make a lot more than certainly than a 289. If you're going to put an old motor in a new car, it better be either a big block or 2JZ. Yeah, that would be more like what I would do. DFA is put a 289 sticker on a 363. That would be a better way to go. I would even paint the aluminum heads. You'd even paint them Ford blue. Post or pre-turbo or pre-throttle body for meth injection? What is the intake manifold on the motor that you're talking about? It definitely has to be after the air-to-air. Yeah, Chris, that's softening the chamber when you're running pump gas is why you would want to do it. Even with mild boosts, you're going to be able to run more timing and the thing is going to be safer. So softening the chamber might allow you to run another 2 or 3 degrees of timing. John Causey boss, a 429 boss motor, that would be good. Kevlar valve covers, Weber's under the carb filter housings. Yeah, the new aluminum double hump heads. And I can see why a guy would do that because he just wants a modern head, but it wants it to look like, and you could just paint those and have them tell people that they're fuely heads. Yeah, if you get metal parts like that lifter clip in an oil pump or anywhere else, it doesn't usually work out very well for the motor. I just got done tearing down my LY6. Was it running when you tore it down? Why'd you have to take it apart? I'm on the fence, 408 or 416. I don't know how you're going to make a 416 out of an LY6. Please don't try to do it with stroke. Don't put more than a 4-inch stroke on that motor. And you're not going to be able to bore it enough to get a 416. It's more than just changing the CC of the head UPS. It's changing the angle and shape of the chamber. I think you need a Shelby 427, an all aluminum FE 427. They have actually run a few of those at West Tech. No, you don't want to go with a 4.1-inch stroke. It brings the piston too far down out of the bottom of the sleeve. The only time we go with longer strokes like that is when we do if we sleeve the block. So if we do a dart and sleeve block or something, then you can run big sleeves. And we've done 4.25 cranks in those and made some fairly good sized motors. Because then when you sleeve it, you can also increase the bore by quite a bit. So we've made. Brian Tooley sent me a 454 that was a sleeved block and a 4.25 stroke, and that thing did good. He told me it was going to make over 700, and it had a cathedral port head on it. And I told him it's not going to, and then that's why I don't tell Brian Tooley that things aren't going to happen anymore when he tells me that this is going to make a certain amount of power. Because he told me back when we kind of first met, he told me that he had a set of trick flow heads that flowed over 300 CFM, and I told him that's just not going to happen. So that's twice I've been wrong. If that was only if only those were the only times that I was wrong. Yeah, Juan, you want to run it richer because it cools things off and it makes it safer. Yeah, the Daytona Cobras were the ones that won the FIA championship, were small blocks. They were 289s. The 427s were what won in the Ford GTs, though. But the 427s were they weren't all street cars. They were actually also race cars that they used, but they didn't run them at Daytona. There probably were like what's his name? Smith ran his big block, and it went. That car went 200, and it was a big block Cobra, and I think that they ended up putting a hard top on it. So that car actually went. It used to have number 198 on it because the car went 198, so that's close enough to 200. And they raced those a lot in local races, but not at they weren't the Le Mans winning ones though. Yes, you can sleeve an iron block. The ones that I did were aluminum blocks. Yeah, I did see Calvin's Green Nova. Okay, 2 more minutes. Famous last words. Yeah, they were Dana's. I was building a kickover for a long time that never got put together. The Daytona Coupe is way more rare. They are very rare, and I'm so happy that they found the original one that you read all the stories about, the one that they took to and set all the FIA speed and endurance records with out at Bonneville and stuff. Because it's very cool to read that story about Pete Brock and about that car and about how successful it was. And then, just like every race car, it's like, oh, that's like yesterday's news. And they took it out and they ran a bunch of like speed and endurance racing, and then they just pushed the car away somewhere, and they found it sometime in the last, I don't know, 5 or 6 years, because I remember seeing it out at the SEMA show, and I'm walking around, I'm like, wait a second, what? That's not. They're like, oh yeah, this is. I'm like, this is the best car at SEMA right now. They're like, good, we're glad that you think so. I said, well, look at this thing, look what it is, look at the history of this thing. I said I would take this over any car here. And it's awesomeness. What is the strategy for timing for turbo cars? It run less timing under boost. Is that it? 12,000 RPM Nova with a 283. That seems like a lot of RPM. What ACM is better? There's not a better one. We run a Holley HP because that's what I learned on, and that's what we have, and we just keep using it over and over and over again. The Terminator X doesn't do as much as the HP does, or as the Dominator, and we have both of those. But it still does the same thing. And either one of those, if you have it if you tell the engine, look, I want it to be 12.8 to 1, and I want it to be this amount of timing, both of those will do that. Turbo Buick, you can convert that L67 to rear wheel drive without any problem, because you just hook up the transmission from a 3800 V6 Camaro that's already rear wheel drive. And that's where we got the bell housing from to run it on the engine dyno. Tim, thank you very much. Meth injectors are pre-throttle body or post. That's not going to make any difference for really anything, because you're not talking about changing the thing that I'm worried about with the injection is that you have a fast intake manifold, and so the distribution for the meth injection, if that's what you have, if it's not water also, it's going to be problematic. Unless it's direct port in a long runner manifold like that, you're not going to get an even amount of water meth injection evenly to all the cylinders. It just won't do that, because that manifold was only designed to flow air. So if you look in the manifold after you spray it, because we did this on an LS6 manifold, you're going to get buildup of liquid in various places. And then also we took temperature readings in a lot of different cylinders, and it's just not even. You don't get an even amount on that. How do you know when you stop adding timing? You don't keep adding timing, and you don't do it like on boosted stuff. We don't do that based on power. Normally, what we do is we know how much timing to run because we've been doing it for a long time. Because a lot of times on boosted stuff, it will keep adding power if you keep adding timing, and then it will break, and then you'll let all the magic smoke out. So you can't run NA timing on your boosted combination. I mean, you might be able to do that at one pound of boost, but at 7 pounds of boost, you're definitely going to have to run less timing. And the only time we ever test continuing to add timing to find out what it responds to, and we have done this, is when you have very little boost and you have way more octane than you need for the amount of boost that you're running. So like, let's say we have E85 in it, or even 118 octane, and we're only running 7 pounds of boost. Then we can run 7 pounds of boost and go, okay, what happens if we run 20 degrees of timing? Okay, what happens if we run 22, 24, 26? Then we could start seeing degradations in power, maybe, if that's what it's doing. And then we go, okay, well, it didn't really respond too much to 26 degrees from 24. And what happens is as you go up in boost, it's actually going to want to run less timing, and you're going to run less timing than you did at 7 pounds. Eco Traveler, thank you very much. An 85 millimeter turbo on a stock 6.0, is it too damn? It's too damn big? No, it's fine. If you're trying to get all of the power that an 85 millimeter will give you, if you're not trying to do that, if you're trying to make 700 horsepower, then go with a small turbo. But if you want to max out the 85, I hope you have a cammed 6-liter to do that, because an 85 millimeter is going to make some fairly good power. Most displacement ever seen out of a small block, I think we've seen 460 inches out of small blocks before. But then if you have, if you have aftermarket blocks with altered bore spacing and stuff, that's they still call them small blocks, you can get a lot more than that. And out of an LS, we've done more than 500 inches. Okay, last question. Come on, come on. Give me one more question. Okay, Kenny, you'll be the last comment for tonight. Yes, Tick Stage 3 Turbo Cam. Okay, Holly High Ram, 6-liter, single VS 85. Wondering about timing and air fuel to start with base tune on my Terminator 85. Well, for air fuel, we like to keep it in the 11.5 to 1 air fuel. So if you have an air fuel meter, which I hope you have if you're tuning, and on a combination like that, if the NA LS motor normally wants about, on our dyno, around 29 degrees. So for turbo stuff, we're going to be like in the 20 range, and a little bit less than that at the torque peak, if that gives you any idea. Max power out of an NA 6-liter LS with aftermarket heads. That depends on a lot of stuff. So I've got to get going. Thank you guys all for showing up. I got some videos I'm posting, and we will see you guys all tomorrow. And so let me know what I need to give away.